Absolutely. Thank you so much. You're,
You're welcome.
we're such a good team. So I just want to introduce both of us for anyone who is just coming in, just meeting all of us. My name is Demetria, and I'm from abundanceangel.org. I also hosted the Soul Freedom series, and this is basically a continuation of that. And my guest today is Louise Eddington. And I just want to read a short, from her bio, which really resonated with me. I mean, there's so much to what she has done. She has a very, very diverse, wide variety of experience and knowledge. But one thing she said was, I kept trying to make businesses work, but it always was someone else's way.
Mm-hmm.
I desired to create my own thing, and the huge talent that I have with astrology was tucked away neat and nice because I thought I had to have a degree or some kind of certification to be able to share it and to charge for it.
Mm-hmm.
All of that changed. I discovered my power and passion had been there all along, using astrological wisdom with a twist of shamanic healing to bring out our natural strengths so that we can create a life aligned, wildly aligned with our soul. So I just felt like that really resonates. And actually it fits really well too with the climate right now with the
Oh,
full moon, right? It's about doing things our way and
very much. Yeah.
yeah, allowing kind of the falsity, like the imitation kind of thing to sort of dissolve.
Yes.
So I don't want to talk too much. I I want to hand it over to Louise because I know she has a lot of very exciting things to say about this. So if you could, because this full moon, from what I understand, it's a full moon in Taurus,
It.
and yes, and it's right on Halloween. So
Oh.
I will let you take it away.
Well, every time I look at this full moon or think about it, I just have that Queen song in my head, you know, about being.
Sorry. Louise, I'm sorry. I accidentally muted you. Can you? Oh, sorry.
I'll unmute me. Yeah. Anyway, where did you mute me?
Okay, right there. We can hear you now. Sorry, I just wanted
Yeah.
to mute everyone else.
Yeah, is this very, very frightening indeed line from that song I keep seeing? Because it's kind of shocking, this full moon, and I think we're seeing it already. I post daily on Facebook and things, and my husband and I were having our coffee this morning, and I was looking through a news app and going, oh my God, there's this like stabbing in France. There's a hurricane that kind of formed within a day and hit Louisiana. And it's that kind of energy leading up to it. But there's also positive, awakenings and surprises. I just shared an article on Facebook saying that there's this new floating planet being discovered in the cosmos, and so Uranus is the lord of surprises and lightning bolts, and a full moon is very heightened energy already, and um, and they're almost exactly together in the skies from our perspective. Uranus and the moon on this full moon at 8 degrees. They're at like literally 3 solar arc minutes apart from our perspective. Of course, there is a big distance between the two in actual reality, but this is as tight a conjunction, it's called, when the planets are together in the cosmos, as I can remember seeing on a full moon. And Uranus just is full of shocks, surprises, innovation. A full moon is generally a point of release. So, to my mind, this full moon it's been described as severe, and I think it could be severe, but also amazing awakenings. I always think there's both, yin and yang in all these energies, and I always talk to that in my work. So, anyway, there's a starter. Let's. Oh, you're muted now, Demetria.
It's gonna be fun. Yeah, and that is actually a very good starter because that is something that I do appreciate at this time is that you really give kind of, not only do you give the positionings of the planets, and the planets have their own personalities.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's so interesting when they come together, there's a certain kind of dynamic that starts
Mhm,
to happen. And you explain that really well, like how that's going to look in our collective, how that's going to feel energetically, individually,
mhm.
um, which I find very helpful because sometimes it's like I'm doing all the right things. And I'm like, why does something feel really like not, there's just nothing I can do to change this. Like I just have to there's something going on, and then I'll watch one of your videos and it will explain, oh, okay, well, we have Saturn and Pluto, or
Yeah, or something. Yeah.
or something like that. So yeah, so one thing I have been wanting to ask, I actually have a lot of questions, but there is there's one thing, there's something about Black Moon Lilith.
Mm.
She's in the picture this weekend, right?
She is, yeah. The moon's currently in Aries, and Aries is the sign before Taurus, and the full moon will be in Taurus. So currently, the moon is traveling through Aries and passing over the positions of Mars. Eris is another favorite of mine, but then Black Moon Lilith finally, and also Black Moon Lilith is going to exactly oppose Mercury. Most people know about Mercury retrograde. And Mercury is stationing direct in 4 days' time now, no, 5 days' time, on election day, November the 3rd in the US. And so this is adding to kind of the wild card energy of this full moon. And Lilith herself is kind of our wild elemental self. She's been painted throughout history as this baby eating succubus who but of course, who wrote these myths? Men. um anyway, but Lilith really is, she was our wildest fundamental feminine energy, and males and females have this within them. And so she's kind of very active on this full moon as well, just prior to it, leading into it. And we're kind of being asked to, in my opinion, kind of awaken to that elemental feminine energy that's creation. It's supposedly the dark energy, but it's the energy of the dark is the energy of creation. The night, the water energy, which is the moon also. So there's so much in this full moon about awakening to this kind of long buried part of ourselves, I think, really. And I don't know if any of your listeners have got my latest book. I talk about a lot of this change in the polarities, and I try to suggest that we need to change our language because we're moving from this fear of the dark and this fear of those more emotional elemental places, to integrating them into kind of the day energy that's the more masculine, active energy. So,
Wow, that is so much of what I have been receiving. The messages that I've been receiving, that it's really kind of time for us to kind of transcend that duality,
mhm,
that kind of us versus them, like good versus bad. It's all there. It's not that we want to kind of homogenize into some kind of spiritual middle or something, or make us all the same. Like that's not what that means. But like transcending it, like yes, there is a variety of forms, there's a variety of expressions,
yeah,
but yes, why, like you said, like that dark. And that's why I wanted you to kind of um give a different perspective on Black Moon Lilith, because I've tried to do some research on her, and I kind of, it just is like, okay, it's really hard to find anything consistent.
mhm,
And I think what you said is kind of the way I see it as well. It's like it's that primordial.
Mhm.
that primordial creative energy. You know, we have to go into the womb, um, into a very dark womb, you know, to be born into something new. And so, you know, does it mean anything, you know? And I think when we can kind of see that, the fear starts to really dissolve as well.
I agree, yeah. And, you know, along with other astrologers, have talked about this more and more. It's kind of more coming into this twilight space within ourselves. It's kind of accepting we are both light and dark, but not, like you said, coming into this kind of homogeneous middle at all. But it's accepting that we have both, all of this within us, everything, you know, and that sometimes it's okay to have the Lilith has her shadow side, of course. You could call it her shadow. She can be a screaming harpy at times, but maybe sometimes it's necessary, you know, kind of to allow that kind of elemental rage out instead of
Mhm.
thinking we have to squash it, you know,
Yeah, especially if
without,
it's been
without
suppressed.
hurting somebody, of course.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, can you actually, you mentioned your book. Can you mention the name of that book and how people can find that? I just want to.
Yeah, it's the complete guide to astrology. This is my second book, Understanding Yourself, Your Signs in Your Birth Chart. And it's on Amazon. It's also on a lot of indie booksellers. You can buy it anywhere online. You can probably order it from your local bookstore if they don't already stock it. It's always in the top 10 on Amazon of the astrology books. I hasten to add, not of all books, but but you know, it's doing really well. And I was asked to write it by a publisher, and I was asked to write it from a more inclusive um, perspective. And I have to credit astrologer Jason Holly for this, and he's mentioned in the book, and he also endorsed the book for kind of introducing me to an old technique in astrology that I've integrated into the modern astrology, because we are moving into the age of Aquarius. Astrologically, an age is 2,600 years approximately. And we're coming out of the age of Pisces, the age of the fishes, which has been a very patriarchal age. And we're moving into the age of Aquarius. And Aquarius is a sign that's really a mixture of the conservative, the ancient, the old, and the very innovative and new. So it seems perfect to me to integrate an old astrological technique into modern astrology, and to find new language, because astrology is the language, is the meaning of the word astrologos is the language of the stars. So I think we actually create, you know, what we receive from the planets and things by the language we use, which is how religions are created and everything. So yeah.
I couldn't actually, I completely agree with that. And it's, yeah, being more conscious of the language that's used. You're absolutely right. I mean, you can almost, you can see it geometrically too. Like certain words kind of create certain energetic geometries. Like as soon as you say them, you can kind of see them start creating. You know, and that's, I mean, just saying a word. I mean, I also want to add to that, like just saying a word, because sometimes people then, oh, I shouldn't say that. Oh, you know, there's all this filtering. But you know, it's like, say it's the word, but then it's also the meaning and
Uh-huh.
the emotion that comes with it, you know, and the persistency of it. And we really do start creating. So I'm glad you mentioned the importance of using certain language.
And you know, taking it back to religions, even if you are not a believer, you know, the Jesus in history is said to have said, "I am the Word." I think or whether he actually said it or not, I think it's emphasizing the importance of how our language creates our world. So, you know, so
I love that. I love that. Can you talk more about this upcoming Aquarian age?
well, I can. Nobody really knows exactly when it starts. We kind of phase out of an age and into another age. So, you know, we saw it in the 60s with Hair and the song, you know, the Age of Aquarius, and people know it's coming. Nobody knows exactly what it's going to look like. Well, I don't think we can know. We can kind of guess looking at the energy of Aquarius, which is a much more I'm going to call it pansexual energy. And we kind of see that developing, you know, with the rise of the LGBTQ community, the rise to prominence of people who really don't identify with any form of sexuality particularly. And I'm not saying everybody will be pansexual, but it's got that more vibe. It's got that more egalitarian vibe, and it's also a very humanitarian sign. But it does have, as everything, it has a shadow of conservatism. We're going to start really getting big glimpses of this energy coming up. I realized yesterday, thanks to a post by a fellow astrologer, that the chart of the USA, because countries have astrology charts too, has their what's called their progressed moon moving to 0 Aquarius at the end, in fact, today. Today. And then on December the 21st, we have what's called the Great Conjunction, also at 0 Aquarius. This is Saturn and Pluto meeting together in the sign of Aquarius for the first time, I think, since 1200 and something, but also the first time in air signs. It's going to start these great conjunctions for 20 that happen every 20 years. There'll be in air signs for the next 200 years. So that's going to be another step into how we feel what this energy is going to look like. This 0 Aquarius degree is highlighted over and over in 2024. On December the 7th, we have another big meetup of energies at this 0 Aquarius. So it's going to unfold over years. Some people think we're already in the age of Aquarius. I think it's still unfolding. So
It definitely seems that way. It seems like it is unfolding. It also, you can kind of sort of tune into it. You know, we are kind of our own little universes. It's kind of depending on where you're tuned into. But before, I still have more questions, but I do want to give anybody who's here, if you are willing to answer questions from, if somebody wants to put a question in the chat.
sure.
But just make sure that the questions are global in nature, you know, that they are for everyone here. If you want like personal information about your individual chart, you would have to ask for a reading from Louise personally. But definitely willing, or if that's okay, Louise, are you okay with answering questions?
I will say, you know, just one little kind of hint, if people want some idea of which areas of their life are going to be affected by all this 0 Aquarius stuff, if they know their chart, they can find where 0 degrees of Aquarius is in their astrology chart, and look at the house or the piece of pie house number it's in, and just get an idea of what's going to be majorly affected for them. So
Interesting. Okay, so see if, and maybe does everybody have that in their chart? Not everybody has that in their chart, right?
everybody will have 0 Aquarius in their chart. They may not
Okay.
have a planet or angle at that degree, but they will have that in their chart.
Oh, I see what you're, okay. So it's, they just may not have a planet. Okay, so I'll be looking at my chart as well.
Yeah. Mm.
I think I see a question. Okay. Will the energy, Sue wants to know, will the energy coming be more positive than this past year?
Well, we're going through a challenging period overall for quite some time, but 2020 was kind of the peak, so it will be um, less challenging. Let's put it that way. And there are some more positive peaks. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Shauna, if you don't mind turning your camera off, that would be super. It just distracts a bit. Thanks. But yeah, it is going to be, this conjunction I've talked about on December the 21st, Jupiter and Saturn, that's going to initiate great change. It's going to initiate, again, it's hard to exactly say how it's going to come up, but there's going to be enormous advances in technology. You've seen nothing yet in the past. Most astrologers agree with that. And hopefully we get the humanitarian side of Aquarius emerging rather than the conservative side of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've actually heard that there actually has been so many patents for advanced technology that would be so helpful to humanity, but they're just kind of they're waiting.
Uh-huh.
Do you see that? Like okay, it's already there. It's
Yeah.
just being able to actually get it out. Um,
Some of it will already be there, and some of it will be, some of it will not be discovered yet. It's going, we've got this in our hands, our cell phones, but I can't imagine what this kind of stuff is going to look like in a few years' time. It's going to be breathtaking, I think. The other interesting thing is that we've felt this coming with the focus on the breath this year. It started with like George Floyd going, "I can't breathe,"
mhm.
and of course an airborne pandemic. We're moving into air signs. We're all learning to kind of breathe in a different way, if you like, or to remember to breathe and to kind of lift ourselves out of this watery realms of the Piscean age, which has been very much about, we're not to get rid of feelings and emotion, of course, and creativity. It's just going to have a different vibe, and a lot of airborne things are going to be, including probably pandemics, but there's going to be like more, like people have been visioning for years, people in flying cars and stuff like that, quite possibly, it's things are going to go up into the air for sure. But air signs are to do with the mind and inventiveness, so it's all to do with invention and new thought patterns. So
That's interesting. Yeah. So I like the idea of flying, of being able to maybe teleport and yeah, new ideas.
it could happen,
Yeah,
seriously. Yeah.
I love that. Well, we do have another question from Shelley. Do you see there being any major upheaval or political situation this week?
Yeah. Potentially, yes, but how that violence manifests is again hard to predict. I mean, there was a stabbing in France again this morning, and 3 people were killed. So there's already some violence emerging, and but then there's also like the hurricane I mentioned before. That was violent. It formed over like a day. People didn't have people didn't have warning to evacuate or board up their windows even, so all of it's this weekend is potentially challenging, but as with all these things, some of us will just be fine sitting in our homes. It's turmoil and change, and of course the with the election in the US, that's going to be interesting as well, so
That is a very yeah, and I like that's the next question. How do you feel we can change the outcome? Yeah, and that as you were speaking, I felt like that's what I was feeling is like, okay, well, we actually have some power to just kind of like affect, to hold that torch.
yeah.
And so as you were saying, these things that have happened, I could just feel, I'm extreme, the
Mhm.
empathy for people who are going through these difficult things, and just like we can take a moment,
Yeah.
like let's take a moment right now and just kind of like feel that light, feel that torch of consciousness within us that's keeping us alive, feeling that light, allowing that light to fill our being, and imagine sending that out to anyone, and Luis, you specifically mentioned some things occurring in France and
Mhm.
in Louisiana. So just kind of like sending that light out to
And Philadelphia too.
Philadelphia.
Mm, yeah. And I think we've all got our own gifts. It occurred to me because I'm a shamanic practitioner this morning. It kind of occurred to me that we've got this mass soul loss. For those that understand the shamanic perspective, soul loss causes, people to be damaged uh, and to be struggling. And it really feels to me like we have a big collective soul loss right now. And so if you have any shamanic skills, just kind of send out your own healing vibes yourself, that people can retrieve some lost soul parts that they are missing, that are causing them to kind of act out right now. I don't know how another way to put it. I don't want to be judgmental of the people, but it's we see a lot of stuff floating around, and I'm not going to go into details, but there's a lot of attacking each other, and I do think people are suffering. And so even though you may not have to invite them into your world, you can send them healing. So yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been getting, even just like these last couple days. It was like, whoa, okay, because there's such a fine line between, especially if you're an empath, like where it's like you're picking up something up, from someone else, and then it might be in you too, and then it just gets amplified. And
Yeah.
so it's like remembering that, you're here to keep that light alive.
Yeah.
And that has to be your priority, because that's the only way you're serving our planet,
Exactly.
serving humanity. Yeah.
That was my first reaction when I read the question. I think I go back to the serenity prayer. The only thing you can change really is yourself and how you respond and react. And by you holding that center and keeping yourself healthy and well, it affects everything else. So
Yes, absolutely.
yeah,
Oh, thank you for that. Okay, I have another. Well, let's see. How are we doing on time? How much more time do you have?
I've got quite a bit of time. You're
Okay,
good.
you got okay. So about 15 more minutes. If anybody else has any questions, but I do have one. You, I love your posts on Facebook. Uh, when a lot of times you refer to these, and please pardon my ignorance in this, but a lot of times you refer to these Chandra symbols and to the Sabian symbols. Where do those come from?
Okay, they were channeled symbols by various people. The Sabian symbols were channeled by Elsie Wheeler in Balboa Park in San Diego, and there's a couple of books on the Sabian symbols. She was a psychic, and she was given kind of a blank card that she would kind of sit with, that had the degree of the astrology chart on the back of it. She couldn't see it, and she just channeled a symbol. So the symbols are for each degree 360 degrees of the zodiac, which is what Western astrology is based on. The Chandra symbols were channeled by somebody called John Sandbach. There's other symbols too. The Chandra symbols happen to be my favorite because
Yeah.
they're rich, full of meaning. So there's a couple of books, or there's a website. If you just Google Chandra symbols, there's a website with them on and stuff. So
Oh, yeah, because you will just, yeah, you'll usually tie it all in with the symbol, and it just, the message is always so profound.
yeah.
So I'm like, where do these things, and yeah, other astrologers will refer to them as well. So Shelley is asking, yeah, so for those that are hurting from this loss, how do we let them know or teach that it's in divine order, yet their life is affected day by day? What do you?
I don't think that's helpful to somebody that's really struggling to tell them it's in divine order. I would never do that, to be quite honest. Even though in the bigger scheme of things, it probably is. I think we can just love them and support them in the way that they need if they're struggling. So
Yeah, I agree. I think, we know that, things are in divine order, but yeah, when somebody is in the emotional effect, it's just our presence and love. I mean,
and holding that space.
holding that space, keeping that torch lit
We
and
we
yeah, go ahead.
we see quite a bit of that in kind of the new age woo community, where people kind of say you asked for your disease, or kind of thing, and it's just, I think it's just so harmful personally. So
Yeah, I agree with you, Luis. I think, I mean, all, the main teaching, it's like, it all comes down to, and it's funny because I have to keep saying this because I realize how important it is. It's like kindness.
yes, yes,
Kindness. It's like we learned it in kindergarten, and yet the mind just keeps bypassing it because it's not complex enough.
exactly. And I even look at the president in the US when he was elected. Ultimately, I did say he's kind of playing his part. He's a part in the unfolding of what's happening, but that doesn't help anybody who's affected badly by the policies. But of course, some people support him, so everybody plays their part, I think. And unfortunately, some people are having a really hard time. So they need the support of us that are not. So
Absolutely. We have another question. What is your astrological outlook from Peter for the coming year in broad strokes?
yeah. Well, I will be doing a free call actually with my podcast partner. If for those of you that haven't discovered our podcast, it's the Weirdly Magical podcast. It's on all podcast providers and on YouTube. And we will be doing a free call looking for the year ahead, because I've only really just started to look at it in depth. But I think the big innovative change is the biggest forecast in broad strokes, with the Saturn Jupiter conjunction, then Saturn and Jupiter, well, Jupiter first, then Saturn will both square Uranus in Taurus. Probably changes to the financial kind of outlook and systems that we use. Big one. Um, I do personally think we're going to have a change of control in the government, but I think there's bigger change in the USA, of course. There's going to be other countries affected, but I also think we've got bigger changes coming, and I think we're going to see the seeds of what's coming from that. Okay, in how the governing systems, the structures of government. So.
Yes, I have been hearing a lot of that. Well, because we're still in our Pluto return, right? And
Oh,
that's
it's not exact till 2022. We're only at the
it's
start.
exact on 2022.
Is 3 exact returns in 2022. So
Wow. Okay. Good.
yes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure the exact date of it. Okay, sorry. So Sue just asked something about how there's a date in January. So yeah, December's significant, and then there's also a date in January, and
Oh,
she's
goodness.
yeah.
Oh, you're asking my memory now. Let me go quickly look at my astrology to see what's coming up in January. Du, du, du. I can look up very quickly, so you're lucky. Okay. So we don't always all look at the same things in astrology, but in January, what's the alignment in January? Mars hit it. Oh, inauguration day. Yeah, in the US, January the 20th, Mars conjunct Uranus is going to be potentially pretty violent, to be quite honest, because it's also going to be in square to that Jupiter Saturn in Aquarius that I mentioned. And when I say violent, it could be like physical violence, or it could just be violent, sudden change. You know what I mean? That kind of shocks everybody. It doesn't actually have to be, punching violence. Violence can be psychic shock kind of change too, to my mind. So January the 20th is looking a bit, challenging.
January 20th. Okay. And wait, so when does Mars go direct?
Mars goes direct on November the 13th. And
November 13th. Okay.
yeah, and then he will travel back through the rest of Aries and then into Taurus, and then approaching this conjunction with Uranus on Inauguration Day in the US. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Wow.
We've also, the USA, if I don't know if all your followers are in the USA, but we've got Mercury stationing direct on election day, which is right after this full moon, which is intense. December the 14th is the day the Electoral College meets, and they, if there's any, that will perhaps decide the outcome, because it's going to be a crazy election. And we have a solar eclipse, a total massive solar eclipse on that day. And then we have that big day on January the 20th as well. So
and it's a new moon, isn't it?
It's a new solar eclipse, is a new moon eclipse.
New moon, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, I mean, I think the thing, just to kind of wrap this up, I think we could probably have you all day, Louise, and asking you questions.
I can quickly answer, Shelley. Do you feel the financial system will alter grandly and silver gold leading? I don't know how. That's the thing with Uranus, is it's expect the unexpected. It could be Bitcoin, it could be something else completely emerge, but the financial system, I think, is going to alter. Yeah.
Wow. I think right there, that is a lot. What I'm realizing is, like, just knowing these changes, I feel like the message is, how can you cultivate a light touch? A light touch with life. Not loosen your grip a little bit, because whatever you're holding on to, it's likely to change, it's likely to shift. And that's actually really exciting. I'm sure there's many of us who can say, oh gosh, yes, let things change, right? Like, there's a lot I'm sure we would welcome to change.
What we had led to this. So,
yes.
And I love the saying. There's a meme that floats around the internet now and again. It's relax, nothing is under control. I think that could be the motto for the time we're going through. So, the light touch, relax. Saturn, the positive side of it is to laugh at what bedevils you. If there's, and it doesn't mean in a spiritual override kind of way. It just means find the humor in it, and just flow with the changes. So.
Oh, I love that. On that note, Louise, can you say real quick, it's your website is louiseeddington.com, right?
Yeah, louiseeddington.com, louiseeddington.com. And my business name is Cosmic Owl Astrology. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. I have a Facebook group, the Cosmic Owl Astrology Cafe. So just come follow, join me, say hi.
Yes, which I absolutely love. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. Honestly, there was really a lot of excitement about this, about us coming together at this time. So thank you, Louise. And honestly, I look forward to doing this again.
Yeah, and thank you for asking me, Demetria. Demetria and I have been Facebook friends for a while, but we've never met face to face.
Well, and there's so many synchronicities. I just want to say, I hope you do your Venus retrograde class again.
Oh, I will. Yeah. But it's not till the end of next year that.
Yeah, that's in May. But I just have to say, there were so many synchronicities that led me to that class. That was so divinely guided, and the timing was just helpful. And I really feel like I connected with many more spirit guides
Mhm.
during that course. So I just, yeah.
It's a magical course, but I have to tell you, I dreamed it. It came to me in dreams. So.
I love that. Yes, I love that. And I could feel, I mean, it was felt that it was very, it was a divine course. So I just want to put a shout out for that. And again, thank you everyone. This will be recorded. So anybody who missed it, we'll send out the recording, and we are going to play again, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Yes, and stay safe. I would just probably just stay home and look after you and yours, really. And
That's good advice for the weekend.
yeah.
Namaste, everyone. Bye.